The movie begins with an international geological expedition camp in the Arctic where scientists including Julia Brown and Oscar Lacombe are setting off controlled deep-sea explosions. Julia and Oscar, having initiated a double explosion against protocol, are recording the results when a sudden fierce storm forces a work stoppage and an evacuation back to their camp. Meanwhile, in the murky depths, the Russian nuclear submarine Ataman Ermak is on a combat patrol. The crew detects high-intensity, unclassifiable seismic activity right in front of them, an event that seems to be making the seabed rise. The ship is battered and loses control as the mysterious seismic activity turns biological with a chilling classification of high-power biological seismic activity. The crew attempts evasive maneuvers, but the submarine rapidly begins to sink. An emergency buoy is released before the Ataman Ermak disappears completely. The disaster prompts a high-level naval command meeting. The Ataman Ermak, a last-generation strategic cruiser with secret weapons aboard, has vanished. The command decides to send the special-purpose submarine B-670 to search for it, with Lieutenant Colonel Viktor Voronin appointed as the commander. In a twist of fate, Viktor is the younger brother of the missing submarine's commander, Sasha. The commander-in-chief, aware of the personal connection, sends Rear Admiral Olshansky, a wolfhound and close friend of Viktor's late father, to act as the senior officer on board and ensure the mission is executed, even giving him the authority to relieve Viktor of command if necessary. Olshansky also reminds Viktor of the paramount order: the secret weapons must not fall into the wrong hands, implying they must be seized or destroyed if the submarine is lost. Before leaving, Viktor's mother gives him Sasha's father's good luck charm, a sign of her concern. Aboard the B-670, Viktor receives the confidential envelope revealing their search area and the details of the Ataman Ermak's disappearance. Olshansky questions Viktor's command skills, suggesting he's too inexperienced. As the submarine begins its deep dive search, the acoustics crew detects a faint repetitive signal, the emergency buoy of the missing Ataman Ermak. Following the signal's direction, the B-670 surfaces near an ice floe. They find the buoy and two stranded civilians, Julia Brown and Oscar Lacombe. The presence of the buoy confirms that Ataman Ermak is somewhere nearby, though their search is complicated by a large pod of whales that encircle the B-670, behaving erratically as if warning them. Ignoring the potential danger to the mammals, the crew fires a sonar burst to disperse the whales, which flee just as a rapid increase in unclassifiable seismic activity forces the submarine to dive again. Viktor is forced to take a significant risk, navigating the submarine at maximum speed through a treacherous ice channel to evade the approaching seismic threat, which results in minor damage to the hull. Olshansky sternly notes the risk, marking it as a gross violation of the rules. The two scientists are brought on board. During questioning, Julia reveals she was born in Russia and that the explosion that precipitated the geological disaster was a double explosive ordered by her expedition leader Ida Larson, a non-standard and risky move. She describes the ice as trembling, like it was alive, confirming the scientists' actions inadvertently triggered the catastrophic event. Julia stresses that the disaster occurred on Wednesday, a crucial detail that contradicts the expected timeline of the Ataman Ermak's disappearance. Viktor is left conflicted, especially as the submarine's antennas are damaged, preventing them from contacting the mainland. Olshansky advocates for an immediate return to report, but Viktor is determined to continue the search for his brother's submarine, opting to retrace the geologist's route. Olshansky privately admonishes Viktor for a second wrong decision, warning the third will be his last. As they follow the geologist's route, the acoustic crew once again detects the unclassifiable biological seismic activity. The large hostile object is tracking them, prompting Viktor to order evasive maneuvers. They attempt to hide behind a cluster of icebergs but are spotted by a Norwegian drilling platform, which sends out a warning signal. The unknown object quickly changes course and heads directly for the platform. As the B-670 surfaces to periscope depth, the crew witnesses a monstrous unknown entity attacking the drilling platform. The object then turns its attention to the submarine. Olshansky, convinced the entity is an enemy and that this is a combat situation, relieves Viktor of command for his third mistake and orders a torpedo attack. 2 volleys are fired at the object, which appears to absorb the blasts with an acoustic shield and continues its approach. With the object closing in and Olshansky seemingly paralyzed by the unfolding terror, Viktor defies the Rear Admiral, retakes command and orders an emergency dive and evasive actions. As the submarine struggles to stabilize, an emergency fire breaks out in the first compartment, sealing 7 crew members inside. The fate of the submarine, now damaged and pursued by an unknown enemy, hangs in the balance. The submarine B-670 is in a dire situation after the torpedo attack, sinking rapidly and approaching its crush depth. Following the emergency dive, the crew struggles to stabilize the ship. The mysterious massive biological entity continues to track them, seemingly sensing their movements. Under the urgent command of Viktor Voronin, the crew enters a silence mode, shutting down all non-essential systems and waiting for the currents to carry them away from the immediate threat. This risky maneuver works and the creature loses their trail. The fire in the torpedo compartment, which had been threatening to destroy their entire arsenal, is contained and extinguished with a release of freon gas, though this leaves them temporarily defenseless. With the immediate threat gone, an argument erupts between Viktor and Rear Admiral Olshansky. Olshansky, citing the severely damaged submarine, the wounded crew, and their now defenseless state, argues they must immediately return to base. He is skeptical of continuing the search into the Nansen Basin. Viktor, however, remains resolute, driven by the chance of finding his brother. Julia Brown, the geologist, approaches Viktor with a new unorthodox hypothesis. Based on ancient sailors' legends and the seismic data from her team's explosions, she suggests the creature is the mythical Kraken, a giant cephalopod that was likely awakened from a long anabiosis by their deep-sea detonations. She theorizes that the Kraken is attracted by sound stimuli and is dragging its prey, including the missing Adaman Ermak, to its lair in the Nansen Basin. She urges Viktor to proceed with caution, maintain silence, and search the basin, which aligns with the final metallic knock signal the acoustics operator managed to record a possible sign of life from the trapped crew. Inspired by Julia's theory and the faint signal, Viktor makes a final dramatic appeal to his crew, choosing to pursue the noble mission to save people's lives over the safer option of retreating. They head directly into the Nansen Basin, maintaining absolute silence. They dive past the safe limit, causing the hull to creak ominously until they stop just above a massive miles-deep abyss. Lieutenant Koshkin, the bathyscaphe operator, and Viktor board the small mini-submarine to conduct the final search. They soon discover a vast ship graveyard, a collection of wrecks dragged to the abyssal floor, and there they find the Adaman Ermak, severely damaged but miraculously intact in the forward section. Viktor finally meets his brother Sasha Voronin, the commander of the Adaman Ermak. Sasha explains that a series of internal short circuits and fires led to a loss of control before an external force, the Kraken, pulled them to the bottom. He confirms that the crew, reduced to 28 men, is alive but rapidly running out of oxygen. Since the B-670 cannot dock safely, they begin ferrying the survivors out in the small two-man bathyscaphe, forcing Sasha to remain behind as the commander. Before leaving, Sasha hands Viktor the launch codes for the secret weapon, an electromagnetic pulse, EMP, warhead which must be destroyed to prevent it from falling into the wrong hands per their mission protocol. Julia, unexpectedly demonstrating her 4 years of submarine experience, volunteers to take the place of the 6-second operator in the bathyscaphe to speed up the rescue. As the final survivors are being transferred, the Kraken returns, drawn by the faint signal of the Adaman Ermak's buoy, which the crew could not shut off. The giant creature enters the rift, moving in for the kill. Viktor and Sasha race to the Adaman Ermak's control room to initiate the weapons destruction protocol. They discover that while the main launch silos are damaged, a smaller set of vertical silos for the weapon are still functional. Working together to bypass the damaged system, they plan to simultaneously fire the warhead and overload the torpedo systems to trigger a massive localized EMP blast that will destroy the Kraken and the weapon itself. Sasha, finding redemption and pride in his younger brother, tells Viktor he loves him and begs for his forgiveness. As the Kraken attacks, Sasha stays at the controls to initiate the torpedo overload, sacrificing himself to ensure the combined explosion occurs. Viktor escapes with the codes just as the blast erupts. The final EMP is successful, neutralizing the weapon and apparently destroying the Kraken. Viktor is rescued by the returning bathyscaphe, carrying Sasha's watch with him. The B-670 surfaces and the survivors are safely brought aboard, their ordeal finally over. The rescue operation is far from over, however. Even as Viktor and Sasha successfully initiate the weapon's self-destruct sequence, the Kraken is in its death throes, thrashing violently. The resulting electromagnetic pulse, EMP, explosion rocks the deep sea, stunning the B-670 and its crew on the surface. Back at the crash site, the final rescue mission is a frantic race against the EMP. Sasha, having bought his brother time with his sacrifice, tells Viktor he is proud of him, finally offering the familial validation Viktor had spent his life seeking. Sasha remains at the Adaman Ermak's controls to ensure the weapon's destruction, giving the ultimate sacrifice for the mission and his brother's safety. Meanwhile, Koshkin attempts to recover Viktor, but the explosion's aftermath causes the bathyscaphe's hooks to seize up. The massive pressure and destabilization following the blast threaten to crush the tiny vessel and its occupants. Julia's earlier submarine experience proves invaluable as she works with the rescue crew to free the bathyscaphe, using her knowledge to navigate the damaged controls and allow Koshkin to disconnect. The bathyscaphe, now overloaded with the last survivors, begins its perilous ascent, buffeted by underwater shockwaves. Aboard the B-670, Rear Admiral Olshansky, having witnessed the destruction of the Kraken and the success of the mission, finally sheds his rigid hostility. He is no longer acting solely on protocol but on the humanity of the situation. He orders the ship to make an emergency ascent, pushing the submarine to its absolute limits to break the surface before its hull collapses. Against all odds, the B-670 breaches the surface. The bathyscaphe and the final survivors, including Viktor, are successfully brought aboard. Olshansky, having temporarily resumed command, immediately steps aside as Viktor, now holding his brother's watch, takes his place, a true commander who completed the mission and saved his crew. The two surviving brothers are now separated only by the grave, but Viktor is at peace, having earned his brother's respect and proven his own mettle. The severely damaged B-670, carrying the survivors and the story of the oceanic monster, begins its long journey back to base, the silence broken only by the relief and triumph of the crew. If you enjoy watching this video, then subscribe to Angel Recaps for the latest movies explanation.